Hey, it's Nicole. I'm back with the fourth report in the Carver County Sheriff's Office investigation on Prince's death, and this one is done by Sergeant DeWitt Meier, badge 813. So we start out on page 26. This report, by the way, was written on the 22nd of April 2016. On 4/21/2016 at about 9 a.m., I received a telephone call from Sergeant Brunage, who said that he needed investigative assistance at 7801 Audubon Drive in Chanhassen. He said that, first point is in the first fragment of the sentence. It says at about 9 a.m., but at 9 a.m., no one had even found Prince, according to everyone's reports. So this was either a mistake or a slip or just sloppy, inaccurate information by the sergeant. So at 9 a.m. they were still out to breakfast, Andrew, Kirk, and Marone. So, okay, on 4/21/2016 at about 9 a.m. I received a telephone call from Sergeant Brunage, who said that he needed investigative assistance at 7801 Audubon Drive, when it's Audubon Road, in Chanhassen. He said that the Prince Rogers Nelson, and Rogers is spelled Rodgers, and then the date of birth is redacted with a little 1 circled by it, was deceased. He said that there were several people at the residence that needed to be interviewed. I asked him to start a crime scene log of people entering and leaving the crime scene. I looked for Sheriff Olson but was unable to find him. I found Chief Deputy Camerud and told him what I had learned. He located Sheriff Olson and we spoke for a minute. I requested that a crime lab assist us in processing the death, and we settled on Hennepin County Crime Lab. I gathered the investigators, and I wonder what the criteria was for which crime lab would be assisting. But I guess we don't really get to know that. Okay, so I gathered the investigators were available, and we had a short briefing. I spoke to the medical examiner, Dr. Quinn Strobel, by telephone and explained that I was in need of her personal services at the death scene. She said she would be responding and would bring one other person from her office with her. So we later learned that that person is investigator Kaman. It's Kamman. But at this point, that person's not being named. You got to really kind of examine everything. I drove to the residence, which doubles as a recording studio for the musical artist Prince. I arrived and parked my car in front of the studio. It was later moved to the west side. I brought a box of rubber gloves from my car and entered the front doors after putting on a pair of rubber gloves. I was met by Sergeant Brunage, who briefed me. I asked about the interior and if it had been searched for subjects and was told it had not. I sent deputies Murphy, Nucci, and Nelson to the Chanhassen District Office to do interviews with some of the first people to arrive and find Prince deceased that morning. Sergeant Brunage, Deputy Wagner, and I took Kirk Anthony Johnson with us to open the doors and guide us through the search. Johnson was the chief of security and close associate of Prince. Johnson said that no one lived in the building except Prince. Johnson had knowledge of the studio and apartment we were searching. We searched the interior in areas that could hold a subject and did not open anything that was not capable of concealing a human being. We did not locate anyone inside. There was one room in the basement that we were unable to access. Johnson said it was a vault that no one had been in, and he did not know where the keys to the locked door were at. Okay, so they reason that they had him guiding them through Paisley Park because he knew the building and he had the keys, yet he's telling them that he doesn't know where the keys to the vault are. And I would think that's one of his most important jobs, and that he knows full well where those keys are at. And one point that Vanessa brings up often enough is the fact that Marone comes back for keys and that they just gave them to her without knowing for sure what the keys were to and who they belonged to, but because she was able to describe the keys, that's good enough. But Kirk don't know where the keys are at to the vault. Several times during the search and processing of the building, I tried keys that were found and was unable to open this door. The door is directly in front of the basement elevator when standing inside the elevator. The door is purple in color and has the Prince symbol on it. The door was never opened, and the contents of that room remain unknown. I returned to the front of the building and asked Deputy Wagner to interview Johnson. I saw that Lieutenant Kittleson had appeared to have remained near the body of Prince during our search. I had observed Prince lying on the floor when I entered the building. The body was lying in front of the elevator door on the ground floor. This elevator is about 40 feet south of the front door on the west side of the hallway. There is a stairway leading up to the second floor, and the elevator is tucked under this stairway. This leaves a small covered waiting type area outside the elevator doors. This area is where the body of Prince laid. I saw that Prince was lying on his back with his left arm slightly extended, palm up. I saw that he was wearing a black knit type cap that was slightly off his head, and a black Under Armour brand zip-up light jacket, black nylon type pants, blue color watch band on his right wrist, and black socks. I saw 2 white colored medical patches on the left arm and right leg. I did not see any signs of a struggle or any obvious trauma on the body. I did not move or touch the body. I only observed it. I usually take snapshots with my issued cellular telephone at death scenes to preserve images as they are when I arrived. I did not do this due to the sensitivity of the investigation. I would think that would be a reason to take pictures with your issued cellular telephone and to protect the pictures, obviously, because what can freeze an image or a scene better than a picture taken at the time? But I did not do this due to the sensitivity of this investigation. No one else took photos that I am aware of except for the Hennepin County Crime Lab. I asked the investigative staff when doing an after-action brief if they had any cell phone photos, and no one did. So then, one question I have right away, after hearing that again, I remember the evening after Prince had died, night number 1, when the world news came on, and I'm sitting on my couch, and of course I expected to hear the story, that Prince had died that day on the world news. But what I did not anticipate or expect in any way, shape, or form is to see his lifeless body on the news that night. On the world news. I'll never forget the way that made me feel. And so if Hennepin County Crime Lab are the only ones that took pictures of Prince after he passed away, then who leaked that picture? All right. The body of Prince was lying on top of a multicolored rug. While searching the building, I saw another rug exactly like this rug outside the elevator door on the landing upstairs. So then, I wonder if there's any significance in there being 2 identical rugs. And then I could have sworn that in the photos that Hennepin County Crime Lab took, that there was also a 3rd rug, which was down in the laundry room, and I believe it was rolled up. I'm not sure if that was one of the identical rugs or if that was a whole different one, but thing with rugs. And also I don't want to get ahead. Okay. Just this report. Okay. I was called by Deputy Murphy, who said that in his interview with one of the subjects, who's Andrew Kornfeld, he found out that Prince may have been suffering from an addiction to pain medication. Deputy Murphy said one of the subjects he interviewed had been at the residence to try to enroll Prince in a recovery program and had possibly some pain medication in a backpack he had been carrying. Based on this information, I asked Deputy Murphy to draft a search warrant for the building to look for evidence of pain medications and prescriptions. I still don't understand why they would need a search warrant when they're already there and it's the day of. I don't understand that. So if anyone knows the answer to that, I would appreciate it. I saw that the Hennepin County Crime Lab had arrived with 3 technicians. Sergeant Kevin Schwartz, Sergeant Shane Magnuson, and Deputy Sarah Buck, and Lieutenant Todd Turpett. I coordinated our response to searching the living quarters between the 2 agencies. I informed Sheriff Olson and the rest of the law enforcement that this was the plan and that it would be about 2 hours before we were ready to serve the search warrant. I asked if anyone had made a complete check of the exterior of the building and was told that it had not been done. I walked one way around the building and Sergeant Brunage went the other. We met in the back and did not find anything to note. That's kind of a mouthful, and I'm wondering, I realize that Paisley Park covers a large area. There's a lot of searching to do inside such a big area. But it sounds to me like, based off of just what I just read, that no one is double checking each other's work. Like, no one at any point had gone through the same thing as another officer, the same room as another officer, the same area as another officer to, like, be a second set of eyes to do a complete and thorough search. I noted that, okay, this is temperature. I noticed that the temperature in the entrance area we were in was very warm. I spoke to Johnson about the thermostats, and he explained that they were located periodically on the east wall of the hallway. Johnson went with me to the first one and showed me how to remove the cover and spin the dial under it to bring the temperature down. I asked Hennepin County Sergeant Magnuson to photograph the thermostats. So I wonder if that was before or after they started playing with the dials. I saw that they were set at 75 degrees and the temperature in the building was reading at 72, which isn't that warm. I turned all of the thermostats in the entrance hallway down to 60 degrees. That's cold. I asked one of the Hennepin County deputies to turn off the space heater in the kitchen area to add to reducing the temperature. I checked later and saw that the heater was off. So the room temperature has always been something that stood out to me because the time of death was called at 10:07. We know that he didn't die at 10:07. The paramedics said that he had died at least 6 hours prior to 10:07. Okay, so we're talking like 4 in the morning, and we've got the heat cranked up, and then we've got Prince's body. So, I mean, in my opinion, it's not that hot, but the officers that were entering make note of the room temperature, saying that it was pretty hot. Very warm is what he said. And that's kind of detrimental because it could throw off the time of death from Dr. Strobel. So, and why was all this heat action going on? What was the reason? Was Prince cold leading up to, in his last hours, or I don't know. I spoke with Dr. Strobel when she arrived, and we made a plan for the removal of Prince to her care after this scene had been processed. It's just horrible wording. The next of kin arrived and asked to be taken to the remains of Prince. I explained that I would make sure they had a chance to be with Prince before he was removed, but that the processing of the scene had to occur first. I waited in the entry with others while the search warrant was written and signed. See Deputies Nucci and Murphy's reports. I spoke to Deputy Murphy by telephone. He said that the assistant to Prince, Marone Vecure, so that's wrong spelling, and obviously before this was written, no one thoroughly checked her out. Anyway, Marone had declined to give a statement and wanted to leave. I told him to give her a ride to her room and at the County Suites Inn. It's actually Country Inn and Suites, but where she stayed, and then bring her back to the studios. Why would you do that? Even I know, and I'm no detective, but even I know that when something happened, and like as a mom, for example, when the kids would have a problem and mom would get involved, I would say, okay, you over here, no one's leaving until I talk to both of you to get to the bottom of what happened. So I'm just not sure why anyone would think that it's a good idea or okay or permissible to allow Marone to leave the scene go to a whole different place, and then come back. What phone calls did she make while she was away? Who did she talk to? I really want to know that. So we'll be looking into that again. So much information that you forget these important details, because then other important details come into play. Okay, so... Okay. Deputy Nelson called me and said that he had been waiting for the cure, Marone, to come back, and she never returned. He said he tried to call her and knocked on the door, but she did not answer. I told him to return to assist us. What a wasted opportunity. And that was like, besides Kirk, that was the top person that they would want to talk to. Well, one of the very top people. I mean, that's his assistant, his personal assistant. Okay, so and it just kind of seems like the only person that's not being treated like a celebrity is actually Prince. So I see his celebrity status working against him, but it's working for all the people around him. We got Kirk over here, like, showing everybody Paisley Park and saying, I don't know where the keys are at for that one room that you guys can't get into. And then we've got Marone being like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to talk. I don't feel comfortable. I want to leave, and I want to leave now. Oh, I want my keys back. Can I get those keys while you're looking for keys for the vault? I mean... Alright. When the warrant was signed, I saw the Hennepin County Crime Lab process the area and the body of Prince. I asked that swabs of Prince's hands and neck be taken to allow the family to have contact with Prince. I told Dr. Strobel that we would be ready for the transport van to come and take Prince away. The interior of the elevator was constructed of a mostly silver color metal, possibly stainless steel. I saw on the southeast wall of the elevator under the handrail that there was a fluid splashed on the wall. I made a mental note to have this area photographed and a swab taken of the substance on the wall. Made a mental note, but never acted on that mental note. Still to this day, nobody ever swabbed the substance on the wall, where they are saying that he was found dead. But they took pictures. But the last that I checked, you can't get DNA off of pictures. So, there's that. I received a telephone call from Deputy Murphy that the search warrant was signed and he was on his way to assist us. The investigators on scene began to search the building. I spoke to the family and explained that they would be allowed very soon to be with Prince. Sorry, lost my spot here. When I was finished, I received a blanket from Lieutenant Kittleson and I covered all but the left hand of Prince at the sister's request. The family went to the body of Prince and eventually several asked to see his face. I uncovered the face after some had the chance to turn away. When the family was done, I escorted them back outside. I helped the medical examiner load Prince inside the body bag and watched the seal put on the zipper. I assisted in carrying the body bag containing Prince. 4 of us carried him into the elevator and to the basement garage. I lifted the bag onto a stretcher and saw him secured in place. There had been a second transport van that had left the building as a decoy prior to us bringing Prince to the garage. Kat from the ME's office accompanied Prince in the transport van to their office. Now, how weird is that sentence? Kat, no last name, Cat sounds like a nickname, short for Kathy or Catherine. Um, so that's just strange. But Cat from the ME's office accompanied Prince. Out of anybody that could have ridden with Prince or Prince's body in the transport van, it was Cat. It's just so unprofessional. And if these people at all knew Prince's life or his entourage or whatever, then maybe things like this wouldn't read this way in the report, but whatever. Okay. I rejoined the investigative staff that was searching the living area of the building. I was called to a room on the northeast side of the building by Deputy Wagner. I saw this room contained items that appeared to make this area some sort of dressing room. Deputy Wagner pointed out a jewelry box that she had opened. So, out of all the things in this room, the very first item that gets mentioned is a jewelry box which has fentanyl in it. That's pretty lucky. But okay. So Deputy Wagner points out a jewelry box that she had opened, showing me a number of white pills that were without a prescription bottle. The inscriptions on the pills were red, and Dr. Strobel used her cell phone to find that they appeared to be a controlled substance generally prescribed for pain. I saw that the pills were being collected as evidence. I walked through the living area this time. I walked through the living area this time with an eye out for items that could be important to this investigation. I went into a doorway that had a sign on the side asking that only authorized personnel were allowed. The room I entered appeared to be a private receiving/dressing room with a bed on the north side of the room. There were couches and chairs in this room with an open suitcase of beauty products. But I guess he kept moving because he then says, I went into the next room attached to this, and which was Prince's bedroom, according to Johnson. Johnson, who says that he doesn't know where the keys are at, but it's his job to keep the keys. He's kind of the gatekeeper here. But we're going to go off of Johnson, which should be, at this point, a person of interest. We're going to go off of what he has to say about all of it. Okay, so the next room attached to this was Prince's bedroom, according to Johnson. When I had searched for subjects earlier, I did not disturb anything. As I looked around, I saw a bed on the south side of the room, and the bedding was disturbed. It appeared that whoever slept in the bed entered and left the bed from the west side. Some of the bedding was pulled onto the floor. I saw a white colored pill on the floor in a fold of the bedding that appeared similar to the pills Deputy Wagner showed me in the dressing room. I pointed this out to Deputy Nelson and continued to look at the scene. I saw an Apple brand laptop computer sitting on the dresser in Prince's bedroom. This dresser was on the east wall. I saw a charger cord for the computer, but didn't see any cell phones or cell phone equipment. I did not see anything that was readily apparent as evidence in my survey of the interior of the building. Now, this happens quite a bit where something is pointed out, such as this Apple laptop sitting next to the bed on the nightstand, and then says, I didn't see anything remarkable. So I really don't get why it's written like that, but it happened several times throughout the investigations. Well, throughout the reports. Okay. When I returned, I was directed to the upper floor and a room. It says ROM. So there's typos all over here, but no one really cares. When I returned, I was directed to the upper floor and a room that appeared to be an office or business type area. This room was on the east side of the upstairs hallway and toward the north side of the building. Deputy Wagner showed me a white envelope that contained a large number of $100 bills. These bills were banded together with a paper wrapper. I did not count the bills or any other money found at the scene. Sheriff Olson had spoken to one of the attorneys that had arrived and represented the business that Prince Nelson conducted. Who said that he was Prince's attorney? Did you require any proof before you divulged any information or asked him questions or treated him like he was Prince's attorney? Sheriff Olson and the attorney agreed that we would collect any cash and place it into one of the file drawers in the room that appeared to serve as an office. These two file drawers are capable of locking, and the keys were in the locks. I found a brown evidence envelope and retraced my steps, gathering any cash that the investigations team had uncovered. The area's currency was located in were the bedroom, the sitting room attached to the bedroom, the office area, and the room used as a makeup and bathing area. I put the currency in the drawer, and Hennepin County Sergeant Schwartz took photos of the envelope and the drawer. I locked the drawer and gave the key to Sheriff Olson, who gave it to the attorney. So frustrating. I later was rechecking the living areas and saw that the kitchen had some currency in small bills lying on the counter next to the door. I gathered this currency and took it up to the office. I put it in the other drawer and locked it inside. Hennepin County Sergeant Schwartz took photos of this drawer and the key missing. I turned the key over to Sheriff Olson, who gave this one to the attorney as well. Wow. Okay. I spoke with Deputy Wagner about the pills that had been found in the bedroom and the room just outside the bedroom. The pills, the pill bottles, the pills from the dressing room were all seized and inventoried on the search warrant receipt. Dr. Strobel was present when the pills were discovered and inventoried. Now, my question there would be, I thought Dr. Strobel's job is pertaining to Prince's body, not the investigation or the search or anything like that. So I was like, whoa, in my brain. Sheriff Olson told me that one of the attorneys who had arrived was in charge of the estate details. Wow, so we're already in charge of the estate details. That's crazy, crazy, crazy. Mr. Gary Hansen was eventually given a copy of the search warrant receipt along with a copy of the search warrant. So it says eventually. So I wonder if they originally thought, well, we're going to need proof, and then they got the proof. It could be one of the 93 or 97 items sealed off from the public. I wish there was full transparency in this case. I cannot believe the number of like half truths that are going on in this whole thing. I just full transparency would clear that up. But they're using the fact that Prince was a private person against him in his death. I spoke with the crime scene team, and they photographed the entire property again prior to our leaving to show the interior as we were leaving it. They also said they were going to handle the photographs differently than their standard procedures. They said that a copy of the video and the photos would be delivered by Lieutenant Turpett the next day, and that their reports were locked down so no one else could read them. So then that clears up a couple of things. There were 2 sets of pictures, that's why, because they took one when they got there and then one when they left. And then the other thing was that they have reports that are locked down that no one else can read. So then reports exist that we can't see, which we figured, but that kind of verifies it. The assistant to Prince, Marone Vicure, came back and spoke to Commander Cheetah, who brought her to me. She asked that she be able to enter and retrieve her keys. I escorted her to the west side of the studios, and on a desk was a set of black color keys she said were hers. She described them prior to me seeing the keys, so I felt assured this was something that was hers. I asked her where she stayed when she did not travel home, and she said she never stayed at the residence overnight. She said she went to the hotel if she was too tired to travel home. She took the keys, and I escorted her out of the building. I had a roundtable discussion with my staff, and we turned the building over to Attorney Gary Hansen and his partner. Who's his partner? Wow. I checked to see that preservation letters and evidence were being processed. I spoke to the command staff, and we made a plan for the next day. I told Deputies Nelson and Nucci to attend the autopsy when it was conducted by the medical examiner in Anoka County. So then Deputies Nelson and Nucci attended the autopsy the next day. And I won't even get into like the rushed cremation and all of that just yet, because I'm trying to just stay on track here. On 4/22/2016, I fielded ideas and thoughts about the death investigation. A weird way to say I thought about that. I assigned Deputy Nelson to gather the medical records from Illinois, where Prince Nelson had made an emergency landing in his plane, and the ones from the hospital in our area. We discussed the prescription monitoring program, and I asked Deputy Wagner to start writing search warrants for the records of the people on the staff that surrounded Prince Nelson. Good to know that exists. I discussed the sealing of the search warrant that had served. I discussed the sealing of the search warrant that had served. I think that we had served on the residence of Prince Nelson, and a plan was made to see that this happened. The sealing of the search warrant. I called and discussed the processing of the pill bottles that had been seized. After some discussions and information sharing, I learned that the method of communications between Nelson and his staff were telephone or emails. I regretted not taking the computer by the bedside of Nelson, as I believe that this contained conversations between his staff and Nelson about medications Possibly. I directed Deputy Wagner to write a search warrant for the computer that we had not seized. What a fail. I learned that the substance on the wall of the elevator at the recording studio had been photographed but had not been swabbed. Fail. On 4/25/16, at about 2 p.m., I drove to Paisley Park and we were allowed to enter the grounds by the security staff. I explained why we were there and some telephone calls were made. I spoke to the former power of attorney for Prince, who said that all inquiries were being handled by attorney Gary Hansen. I asked that we be allowed inside the residence to swab the elevator and was told that Hansen was able to arrange this. I knew that Deputy Wagner, who was with me, had a signed search warrant in her possession for the computer that had been by the bed of Prince. I was unable to get any answers to Hansen by telephone, and the security staff asked us to leave. I left without serving the warrant or letting anyone know we had a warrant. When I was back at the office, I received a telephone call from Gary Hansen. He said he was at the airport and was unable to take my call. I explained I needed to have the wall swabbed, and he agreed to meet me at Paisley Park at about 3:30 the next day. Wow, that's a nice big heads up for those at Paisley Park. Okay, on 4/26/2016 at 3:30 p.m., I went back to Paisley Park with Deputy Wagner and Deputy Stan. I eventually met Gary Hansen and another attorney who was with him see Deputy Wagner's report. It's nice that they throw a name in there for that other attorney, but okay. I explained that there was some substance on the wall of the elevator that we needed to swab as this had been neglected. He took us to the front doors and I saw that Marone Vicure had opened the doors for him. Wow, so she went from I want to leave, I don't want to talk about this, I'm upset, I need to go to the hotel where my room is, then I need to come back for the keys, can I come back in? They give her her keys, and now she's opening doors for other people. I'm floored by that. So, okay, I'm seeing. Okay, so this is on the 26th, not the day of. So, Marone is just opening the. Okay, my bad. Okay, so I sent Deputy Stan to do the swab of the elevator and asked to meet with Hansen. We went into the office area that is the first door inside the front entrance on the west side. I explained to Hansen that we needed the computer. I offered him the option of giving us consent and voluntarily giving me the computer or asking me to serve the search warrant. We discussed the advantages to both alternatives for the estate, and he asked for some time to consult. I went to the couches in the front area of the entrance and waited with Deputy Wagner. Hansen told me that he would sign the consent form and give us the computer that was in an office on the first floor. He signed consent to search form that Deputy Wagner filled out, and on the form was written that the estate was able to view the information with us when we analyzed it. See the form as it is attached to this report. I don't see it attached to this report. And the other thing is since when does a party that is served a search warrant get to call the shots and get to say, all right, as long as I can see what you're seeing? That is just crazy. And then, of course, Hansen then agrees to go ahead and give the computer over, because by that time, things had been deleted off of it. And so I wonder if a phone call to Kirk happened right there, or Phaedra. Okay. Hansen had to call a locksmith to open the locked office that the computer was in. I left Deputies Stan and Wagner remain to collect the device. I received a message later that said the computer was in our custody. I spoke to medical examiner Dr. Strobel and asked that the blood sample was taken from Prince the night before his death be analyzed and for toxicology to compare with the sample taken at autopsy. On 4/29/2016, I spoke to BCA agents Chris Olson and Scott Mueller about doing computer analysis on the laptop that was obtained. They agreed they would make arrangements and have their best forensic computer technician do the analysis. And I would just like to say they should have been doing that all the way around with every professional that touched this case. Should have been the very best. This was Prince. And at the end of the day, he's a human and someone should have cared, and it seems like no one did. On May 3rd, 2016, there's another typo. I was told that our office would partner with the DEA in determining where the controlled substances came from, and that a determination on what charges would be filed and who would charge them would be made when the investigation was complete. I was told that a meeting was going to be set up for May 4th, 2016 at about 11:30 a.m. with the U.S. Attorney and the DEA. On May 4th, 2016, I directed Deputy Wagner to print several pictures of the scene and the body of Prince Nelson as we found Paisley Park on 4/21/2016. The disc of photos was in the care of Deputy Wagner with the instructions to not allow anyone to print copies without my permission. I numbered the photos and brought them to the meeting at 11:30 a.m. I gave a briefing to the guests that Sheriff Olson had invited and passed the photographs around. I received the photos as they were done being viewed and later double-checked the correct number were present, and I personally placed them in the shredder for destruction. At this meeting, it was decided that the DEA and our office would work together in two investigations that we knew would touch often. The death investigation into Prince Nelson's death would be one of our priorities. Nice word. And the diversion of the controlled prescriptions would be the other shared by us and the DEA. We agreed to meet at DEA headquarters on the 5th of May, 2016 to iron out some of the details. I explained that we had the computer that had been at the bedside of Prince, and I had arranged for the BCA to analyze it and do lab work on the pill containers that we had seized from Paisley Park. I was told that was fine, and to handle this as we would normally by DEA Supervisor John Rickley. On May 5th, at 2016, at about 8:30 a.m., I met BCA agent Chris Olson at our office, and he took the computer that we had obtained from Prince Nelson's bedside and took it to BCA for analysis. At about 1 p.m., Deputies Nelson and Wagner went with me to the Minneapolis DEA headquarters. We were shown around a It must be another typo. We were shown around and filled out some paperwork to assist us in working with the DEA. A list of priorities, there goes that word again. A list of priorities was set out and information was exchanged. DEA Task Force Supervisor John Rickley asked that I get the computer back from the BCA, and they would have a DEA computer specialist come to our office to image the computer under the search warrant we had already obtained. Too late. I'm thinking it's too late. Because we got Master Shredder and we've got shredding and deleting happening. So I'm thinking it's a little late for caring about the computer. You already let 5 days go by, and now you're acting like that's important. I called BCA Supervisor Scott Mueller, who understood and made arrangements, even though this guy's spelling it arraignments. Sergeant DeWitt Meier. Arrangements for us to pick the computer back up. So back and forth, back and forth. Deputies Wagner and Nelson went with me to BCA headquarters, and Deputy Wagner received the computer from Special Agent Olson. The computer was brought back to our office and entered into evidence again. On May 6th, the computer from Prince Nelson's bedroom was imaged in our lab by the DEA, and 3 copies were made. 2 copies went with the DEA, and 1 went into our evidence room. On May 7th, 2016, I received a call from BCA Special Agent Olson, who said the lab analysis of the containers given to them was done. He said there were prints suitable for comparison and DNA files found. See lab report from the BCA. On May 9th, again a typo, 2016, at about 9:30 a.m. Kind of makes you wonder about any other typos that, like, you know, make sense. Like this, for example, it says 9:30 a.m. Well, how do we know it's really 9:30 a.m.? You slipped up before and you said that it was 9 a.m. and we know that it wasn't 9 a.m. So then was that a typo or was that a convenient mistake? Again, like the search warrant. The search warrant for the computer, it took 5 days because they had the wrong birth year on the original search warrant. So then that costed them extra time. So I do highly question the accuracy of these people's accounts, because we see other things that they're saying that we know for a fact are not true inside of the investigation. So it's not like we can look at the investigation and go, oh, well, excuse me, it must be true because it's in the investigation. Because there's crap all in the investigation that isn't true or half true or 90% true with a little tiny little lie in there making the whole thing false. So there's that. Okay. On May 9th, 2016, at about 9:30 a.m., I received a telephone call from medical examiner Dr. Strobel. She said that the toxicology report results were back from the lab on Prince Nelson's specimen. Said there were levels of prescription medications, hydrocodone, in the urine, but none in the blood. She said that the blood contained a high level of the drug fentanyl. She said the count was 67.8 mcgs per liter of blood. In way of reference, she said a cancer patient with a fentanyl patch on would change the patch every 3 hours and have a blood level of about 3 to 5 mcgs per liter of blood. Now, one thing is that I recently was having a conversation about this 67.8 mcgs, and it prompted me to think, are we sure that they're labeling their fentanyl amounts correctly inside of the investigation? Because this says MCG. And then there's also MG, and then there's micro and macro, and okay, and then more recently I was having a conversation with Vanessa about the 3 to 5 MCGs offered by like a fentanyl patch for cancer patients. Is it that they would change their patch every few hours, or was it every few days? So this I'm questioning, and would have to do some more research, and I will when I get to it. But I mean, I just wonder if like a nurse would know that. Okay. I spoke to Chief Deputy Camrud and Sheriff Olson about the news from the blood analysis. I explained that we needed to return to Paisley Park and search the building again, looking for items that could contain the drug fentanyl. I met with Deputies Nelson and Wagner about the information, and I asked Deputy Wagner to begin a search warrant for returning to Paisley Park. We informed our partners at DEA, and the search warrant was obtained in federal court. On the 10th of May, 2016, a search warrant was obtained by the DEA, and our deputies briefed at 3:30 p.m. Shortly after 4 o'clock p.m., we were notified that the search warrant had been signed. Sheriff Olson made the arrangements for a representative from Bremer Bank, the appointed administrator of the estate, to meet us and let us in the building. So the 10th of May, we're talking, at 4 p.m., a caravan of people and cars went to the Paisley Park complex. We entered the guarded gates and waited for the person with the keys to arrive. The keys arrived, and I entered the building at 5:44 p.m. We searched the building until about 12:30 a.m., so about 7 hours. And then left uniformed sheriff's office staff on site for the rest of the night with plans to return the next day at 9 a.m. So, why are we not having uniformed officers stationed at Paisley Park the night that Prince passed away? But on May 10th, it sure becomes a priority. Just seems like we care about the vault and what's in it. Not much else. Definitely not that computer, because by the time they finally got to it, it had already been messed with and deleted from and da-da-da. Alright, so they leave at 12:30. They have sheriff's office staff on site for the rest of the night, and they plan to come back at 9 in the morning to continue their search. On the 11th of May, 2016, at about 9 a.m., we returned to finish the search of the building. We were unable to get into the vault in the basement without damaging it. An arrangement, it says arraignment again, but an arrangement was worked out with Bremer Bank to have sheriff office staff remain on site and outside the locked building until an expert could be brought in to open the vault. The bank had concerns that the vault contained numerous valuable recordings that could be damaged by unwanted exposure from outside the vault. When everything was searched except the vault, we took the evidence that had been collected and left. On May 12, 2016, at about 10:30 a.m., I spoke to Dr. Strobel by telephone. She told me that the blood sample taken the night before Prince Nelson died, which was 4/20/16, had no fentanyl in it. Let me read that again. She told me that the blood sample taken the night before Prince Nelson died on 4/20/2016 had no fentanyl in it. She asked about nasal sprays at the scene, as one of the current methods of abusing fentanyl is to snort it. I told her that there were some nasal sprays and eye drops at the scene. On May 13th, 2016, I received a telephone call from DEA agent Rickley. He said that Bremer Bank was flying in a specialist to open the vault, and he would be at Paisley Park on the 15th of May, 2016, at about 5 o'clock p.m. On the 15th, at about 5 o'clock p.m., I arrived at Paisley Park. There were numerous people present from the bank, and a specialist who was going to open the vault and then put it back together so that the interior was secure. I was present when the vault door was breached and slightly opened. I saw the time was about 7:10 p.m. I watched as Deputy Wagner took photos of the interior of the vault. We searched the vault and did not find anything of evidentiary value. Here we go. I found 6 zippered bank bags in a white garbage bag on a shelf in the northwest corner of the vault. One of the bags had the word opium written on it. I looked in the bags and saw only cash of different denominations. The bag that said opium on it, I was unable to get the zipper open. Well, we should probably slice the bottom of that open to make sure that there's not opiates in there, because it says opium on it. It's not possible that Prince ever played at a club called Opium, or Rockstar Junkie. Yeah, okay. I looked in the bags and saw only cash in different denominations. The bag that said opium on it, I was unable to get the zipper open. I used my pocket knife to slit the seam at the bottom of the bag to look inside. I saw only cash in the bag. All 6 of the bags were given by Agent Rickley to the Bremer Bank personnel. To my knowledge, the cash was never counted by any law enforcement at the scene. I saw Deputy Wagner take photos of the vault and the money bags on the shelf inside the vault as we left the interior. According to my watch, the time we exited was about 7:38 p.m., which means from the time that the vault door opened at 7:10 p.m. to 7:38 p.m. when it was closed. I'm sorry, I can't say that it was closed, but they exited. That was a time span of 28 minutes, for anyone curious about that. On May 17th, 2016, we are almost done here. On May 17th, 2016, I spoke to BCA Supervisor Scott Mueller and made preliminary arrangements for evidence we had obtained at Paisley Park to be analyzed for controlled substances, including fentanyl. See Deputy Wagner's, didn't even spell that right, report for the in-depth description of the transfer of evidence to the BCA. I had several conversations with medical examiner Dr. Strobel, again it's misspelled, but whatever, about a chemical analysis of the stomach fluids found and collected in the autopsy. Dr. Strobel told me that the stomach acid would be expected to have some low levels of fentanyl in it because there was a significant amount in the body/bloodstream. I asked Dr. Strobel to send the contents to the lab anyway to see what the levels were, as I felt they would be a significant factor. On May 23rd, 2016, at about 8 a.m., I spoke to Dr. Strobel by telephone. She said that she had the results of the chemical analysis of the stomach fluids back from the lab. She said that the extremely high level of fentanyl in the stomach contents left no doubt that the drug was ingested orally by Prince in pill form. Well, I wish that someone would elaborate a little bit on that. Why do you make that assumption? I mean, she's obviously more educated than I'll ever be in this field, but I guess I just want to understand that a little bit better. I met with Sheriff Olson and Chief Deputy Camerud to let them know the information Dr. Strobel had given me. I then told the investigators this information. End of report. Sergeant DeWitt Meier, badge 813. Also noted here, April 19th, 2017 is when the pictures were released. Stay tuned.